Welcome back to another Draw Simple Easy. Today we're going to be drawing Apocalypse from the comic books. I've been taking a good look online with Google image searches and found quite a popular image which we're going to learn how to recreate today. So grab yourself pencil and paper and get going with a circle over slightly to the right at the top of your page. Now this guiding circle is going to be the dome and top part of Apocalypse's head. He is bald, so it's a very simple shape to deal with. And I'm just going to draw my center line off at an angle that comes all the way down, a good 2/3 of this circle height further down. Now we draw lines off on each side, and I'm going to try to keep these lines fairly straight down, not tilting in until we get just below the circle line, and then I'll bring it in for a very wide lantern style draw. Very big. Apocalypse is an ancient character with a slightly different, squarer setup than many humans. Now, what we get to do is drop his neck off as quite a wide line, maybe just coming off there, following the shape of the front of the head, but dropping straight down to the right as well, very heavily muscled. And we're going to pop some ears in by the edge of this circle, just an ear shape that goes to the bottom line height of this circle. If you imagine the line runs along here, and then we'll do the same on this side as well, something like that. And the eye line will be in the bottom third of the circle itself, around about inside here. So what we can do is just go ahead and draw some angry eyes, a little bit above halfway, I'd say. Let's start with the brow. So we come down and in, and then just shoot straight up with an angry brow. And brows are a great way on male characters to help you decide where the eyes are going to go. Come straight up like that, and then the eyes themselves are going to come in a little bit more shallowly under there, a bit wide on the outside, blinks in to the front, and the same on this side, fairly wide on the outside, fairly level, maybe tilted in just a little bit there as well. It's an angry stare with Apocalypse. He's a very serious type of guy. Now, for the nose, we're going to go where the circle meets this whole zone just at the bottom here, and we're just going to bring up the flare of the nostril around about there. I'm using the inside edge of the eyes here as a rough guiding point, something like that. I'm going to let the nostrils flare and then peak down for a nose and flare out again like so, and really just put a circle in here. And I'm going to use this all as a bit of a mapping zone for the nose later. Maybe some crease line comes up the nose here as we get in, and then I'm going to make sure all of this is in shadow, but we'll come back to that in a moment. With the mouth, we're going to go around about halfway, so let's say where the bottom of that jaw space is, and he's got a very thick, very deeply presented mouth surrounded with, I don't know if it's blue opiates that have stained his lips, or war paint, or just because he's not quite human basically. But I'm going to do a big, angry, unhappy frown. It goes right across like that. It's got a really wide, powerful mouth, and then it kind of goes down and then really shoots up around his jaw as well. So I'm just going to pop in a line that might accentuate that, still inside of a face shape for the moment. Maybe same up on this side, up and out to the right. But a lot of this particular image we're working from is covered in shadow, so that will be a big help to us later as well. And then we've got a big bottom lip somewhere across there. Trying to keep my guidelines nice and dark. Let's have a quick check. Good, I'm glad it's all in focus. Now, this Apocalypse image is going to be in a particular sort of frame of body armor and a mantle. So the way that I'd like to measure this out is just imagine two heads wide, maybe one starting around about here, and then the head would be this wide, and then it would go around about this wide again. So this is the box zone, if you imagine it being in, but this mantle is going to fall into. So what I'm going to do is draw an ellipse. So I'm going to bring it from around about here, about halfway down to the neck area, and a curve that comes all the way around, and then curves the other way, the inside edge of a circle, and it's going to cut off the bottom of his chin, like so. So imagine it there, imagine it round there. Then I'm going to drop it down and out on either side, like such. And then in the middle, if you imagine the line coming straight down, it's going to point off. So it's going to almost have a slight bat wing shape as it just cuts down to the front of the mantle, like that on this side, and like that on this side to a point. Now from there, things get a lot easier because he's got a big cloak. But what we need to also do is just map out his body, which will be underneath it. So very generously, I'm going to just create this kind of slight barrel chested shape. It's going to curve round off this side like so, and it's going to curve round off this side as well. Nice and big and round. If I come then straight down the middle, I can start to imagine we'd have pectoral muscles maybe round about to down here, about halfway. They will shoot off and be quite well defined and large, but we don't need to worry about that too much for the moment. A lot of this will be in shadow. And then maybe just the very top edge, not quite the stomach muscles, but the part that just meets into the rib cage around about there might have some definition as well. And then usually some rib joints just fit in this gap here. So you'll notice that I've just created this zone, which I'm just filling in here, just like so. Very basic, very loose this time round. We'll get to mark it out and fill in and work out shadow in just a moment's time. And then he's also got a very interesting belt going on. So if we drop straight down from just the inside edges of that chest circle, it's got a very wide body as Apocalypse. And I'm going to just, I think we're going to fit in 2 of the belts. He has 3 belts that he wears. And we've got just enough space on this page to put in 2 of them. Now, about 1/4 of the way over to the left hand side, if you draw a line down on there, this is where our buckles to the belt will probably line up. So I'm going to mark it with a rectangle there, and just remember that I'm going to come in a bit there, do the same on this side. There'll be a bit of gap pressed into the belt there, like such and like such. It'll squeeze in both instances, and then around about the middle of that we're going to have the buckles which will loop right over the front, something like that. A rectangle there, and in the middle here as well, if you imagine a rectangle that comes out there, and we'll shape that in just a moment. The end of the straps will curve off there and there, so halfway between this point and the side, and we'll give this just a little bit of shape and definition. Now right in the middle he's got this main kind of buckle or clasp. I don't know if it's supposed to represent an A, but if we go and just draw a very large rectangle just right down in front of all of this, and then what we can do straight away is just get another shape on the inside edge, another rectangle. That means this is now some kind of letter N or A without a line in the middle. It's going to fit around about there. There might be a bit more belt just off there, but otherwise what we get to do now is just map in the shapes of shoulders. So a very confident circle, I'd suggest. One that comes off here, kind of sags a bit off the top for a shoulder there, and a very similar thing with Apocalypse, because he can change size and dimension. You can throw in really big shoulder shapes like this and get away with it. And then on this side he's going to have his forearm up. So I think we'd fit a bottom of a fist shape there. I'm just picking the very edge of a rectangle onto that space. Throw a thumb on top of it around about here, and then know that this is all going to be wrapped up in some of his cloak or his cape. So we might fit in 2 of the kind of bunched up finger areas there. And then on the inside here, I'm just going to put a nice big confident circle again. And that's going to be mostly the bicep, mostly his forearm. Probably around about here like this it will fit. And then it's going to shoot off and down to be the forearm as well. With these comic book characters, you can just keep going so large like that. So let's go with this cape. Now it all starts from this point here in the middle, and it really just, everything sweeps away and out from this gorget, this neck piece. So if we get an outside line going that's going to be folded right back thanks to the forearm, we're going to go down, around on the outside, and then over the edge like so. And then all other lines are going to play around with this idea. So I'm going to create a zone firstly. On this edge here, I'm going to imagine I'm almost drawing in an almond shape, an ellipse or an eye. I'm going to come straight left pretty much, and then at last minute curve down. So just a line that goes out and then curves. And now I'm going to play around with all sorts of different shapes that are going to go within this. So all the lines on the outside edge will go and tuck into this mantle. So if I just draw some very abstract shapes, maybe coming off the top here like this, each of these points is a line, is a stress, is a fold, but it's all going to come and make its way right back in here. There'll be loads and loads of small folds, but you can just get in the main lines to bulk out everything if you don't want to spend too much time on a picture. Up and in like that, and then up and in like that as well. With this shape, I'm going to just mark a center line down the middle of this particular zone that I've outlined, and again use that to a very similar effect. Lines that just represent the bunching of the cape, the cloak coming in at the top. Some of these will be very dark in shadow, but a lot of these are going to tuck into a fold, which is this top line here, which is partly why I've put that in. Now on this side, much easier. We're going to come right down and out. We're going to go around the outside of this belt line and just sweep straight down to the bottom and off the page. And then all we need to do there is just follow that line a lot. So I'm going to create one shape that goes off the side like this, kind of some triangle shapes that I'm using here. There'll be another triangle space that goes over the front of the chest here, and then a lot of sweeping action will happen because most of this mantle is over the shoulder and then straight down like so. Now again, I'm going to put in a few bumps where there might be the odd fold, but this is a much more simple shape. It's going to breach out and just blossom off the edge of the shoulder like so, and the other lines are going to sprout out like so. Getting in the main zones and fitting in where you might have your lines is one of the best things. Don't worry about matching every line perfectly, but just know that one particular area is a fold, another particular area will just be draping straight down with very little conflict or action, and then another area as well, everything will just be hanging straight off of the side. So again, we draw on our lines like that, and we've got the main frame in. So we need to map a bit of shadow for the body. Now there's going to be all sorts of effects and bits on the belt. We're going to have some buckles in here with belt holes. That's going to shape up more nicely. There's going to be areas of shadow. So these buckle flaps will come forward. We'd mark an area of shadow here and here. It's all going to be shadowed off to the left. The bicep is going to be in shadow where the cloak comes over it, so it will drop off a zone of shadow here. There'll be all sorts of crazy shadow lines to mark in the muscle structure, but we won't worry again about each individual one. Just learn to copy them as you get used to the shapes. These areas that we've drawn in for the chest pieces and the ribs, these will become areas of light and shadow as well. Maybe a little bit under the pec, but with some underlighting there. And again, coming up around here, a similar thing on that side as well. A lot of this area will be immediately in shadow because it's right under the cloak, and maybe there'll be all sorts of folds and niche bits under the belt as well there. As for the rest of him, we'll show some metallic surface around here, so there might be a very dark reflection zone off this side, maybe a similar thing off this side, because a lot of this image is hanging under shadow. So what we get to do straight away is map a curve around the top of his head, and it's going to cut past the eye. So we're up here, we curve our way down to the eye, goes in, and it's actually not a perfect line. It's going to map the contours of his face. So bumps out where there's a brow, couple ridges where there might be lines on the head, and then it goes up and around. And on this side, it's going to show a cheekbone. So now's a great opportunity to get those very shallow but pokey cheekbones very high on the face, up and round here. I'm going from the center of the nose line. I'm just following that shape round. And all this is going to do is really help us out with all sorts of areas of shadow. Side of the face, the neck, the back zone here of the top of this gorget, the back zone on that side. It does have a thick lip to it, so we will put a line in there to show that it's got some thickness as a material, but the shadow will certainly go in there as well. This part of the neck, the ear we'll put in our standard ear shape that's a bit earlobe started on that side and this side as well, although this will mostly be black. There are some markings on Apocalypse's head that come in from the top edge. Now you can't see them all perfectly with this type of image because of the shadow, but one of them breaches down here like a tooth, and then there's going to be all sorts of shading and darkness area around the eyes. All round the head where we've got all this stress and consternation on the brow, all sorts of lines are going to be packed in there. Some crease lines on the top of his forehead, and then all sorts of shadow around the nose. If you imagine the light source coming from above, slightly right, so it drops off down left, and then all sorts of shadow under lip, round the edge of the chin, all on the left side of the face, and loads of zones that show how wiry and deeply ridged the face will be. With a masculine face, you can put in all sorts of lines after a while and really fill it in to give the character some emphasis and depth. So the neck I'll just widen a little bit, but that will pretty much be it, everybody. These are our guidelines, our guide shapes in place. To keep it simple and quick, don't be scared to try to quickly get some loose shapes in to work on a form. Once you've got a form down, you can make it larger or smaller as you wish. You get the main idea. I'm going to drop into time lapse and use some pens on this. I'm going to ink the whole area, I'm going to darken up in black all of this zone, all sorts of crevices on the face. I'm going to do it down this side of the gorget, and I'm in fact going to pretty much just black out an entire zone that drops off down the right here, leaving a few of these crease lines out in white. And I'll see you guys right at the end. Well, and there we have it, everybody. A nice, quick, simple picture of Apocalypse. Now, when I went into the inking stage, I made sure that I stuck to these major blacked out areas that I mapped earlier. And once you've got the big sheer black down, you can start to use all sorts of cross-hatching techniques around it to soften the border and give it loads of tone and texture. When it came to mapping off this area of shadow down the right, I made sure that I still included lots of different folds of the cloak to still give it a load of dimension. So there we go, that nice image we found online, we've had a go at building up ourselves. If you guys want to see any other characters on the Draw Simple Easy series, then get into the comments below and let me know what's going to be next. Click like, click subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time round. Bye bye.